I got to direct this wonderful half hour. Anyway, my wife Cheryl and I composed this little one-act work. It's a narrative for 4 voices, thanks to the encouragement and support of Canute Brary. He's right here. Grand storyteller, and Laurel Adams of the Peacock Theater right down the road in Hayesville. And here at the Folk School, I'd like to thank Bethany Cheney, Morgan Budzinski, T. Claw Crawford, Susanna Pyatt, Lane Gresham, and all staff who diligently moved the chairs after event after event after event. My claim to fame, if I didn't have notes, I'd really make a fool of myself. And it's supposed to be entertaining. My claim to fame is that the founder in 1925, it's 100 years ago now, of the John C. Campbell Folk School, Olive Dame Campbell, was my great aunt. Wow. Talk about royal blood. Now her sister, Ruth Coolidge, was my grandmother, mother to the next generation Olive, known as Augie, Bradford, known as Brad, and my mother, Ruth, known as June. Now there's going to be a test afterwards. Don't get lost. June was a fine artist who spent the summer of 1928 at the Folk School, age 16, painting paintings, designing and creating wood blocks, and generally being Olive Dame's productive, creative niece. In 1936, she married in Japan Cary. And with the approach of World War II, they came back to America and worked at Folk School for the next 4 years, from 38 to 42. Now, for further details of my mother, look over that display case. Thank you to Frankie Lowe. And please take a look. And thanks, Mom. Well, enough introduction. On with the reading. For 4 voices, Harrison, Janice, Virginia, and Harry.
Good afternoon. Just to get started, the year is 1925. This little one act entitled The Birth of the John C. Campbell Folk School. Let me introduce myself. I am Fred O. Scroggs of Brasstown, North Carolina, in the western tip of the state, roughly 2/3 in Clay County and 1/3 in Cherokee County. Population around this part's kind of hard to figure, but you can be assured it's sparse. Now, Brasstown is where the John C. Campbell Folk School came to be founded by Olive Dame Campbell. John C. Campbell was an educator and great admirer of the Appalachian people. Back in 1902, he was teaching in northern Alabama, proud of his school, when one day he found a girl crying.
I've come to tell you goodbye, Mr. Campbell. I'm aiming to quit school.
But why, Myrtle? You're a bright student, young, resourceful.
What's the use of educating me? You know, I'm only a girl, and there's 8 youngins at home. Well, you know where we live. You know what it's like.
But you will be a more helpful girl with an education, and you will have a much farther influence on your own home later.
Well, it ain't for me, Mr. Campbell. Don't you see what's happening? The best boys, the only kind I'd want to marry, well, they don't stay here when they finish school. There's nothing ahead for me but to marry someone I don't really want. Let the men folk support me. Now that I've been to school, I want things that I can't have. I'm just better off left in my ignorance, Mr. Campbell.
That brief conversation was the spark that lit the fire of passion in him as an educator. He wanted to find a way to improve the lives of the Southern Appalachians. His wife, Olive, shared his enthusiasm.
We spent the next several years traveling through the Southern Mountains. With a grant from the Russell Sage Foundation of New York, we collected invaluable data of a strong and resourceful people. And while we traveled through the highlands by wagon, by horse, by foot, through freezing winters and glorious springs, I began collecting old folk songs that were clearly rooted in the old country, England, Scotland, Ireland, faithfully preserved by these isolated mountain folk. John became convinced that the Danish folk school system was the answer. Young men and women together, working and learning as a single population, lifting the whole community together. We decided to go to Denmark and see for ourselves. We made plans, but by the end of July 1914, World War I broke out. And then, in 1919, a heart attack claimed John's life. I was heartbroken, but not to be thwarted. I connected with Marguerite Butler, a scholar of the Pine Mountain School in Kentucky, and by 1922, we set off for what turned out to be more than a year, traveling to the rural schools of Norway, Sweden, and especially Finland. Finland, it should be noted, was a brand new country in 1919. The summers were so short that everyone had to stay working on the farm. School in the rest of the year was attended by all students from 18 to 30 years of age, a non-accredited, non-standardized school of living, without academic prerequisites, focusing on traditional arts and crafts, music, and improving agricultural practices. Marguerite, clearly this folk school system could be adapted to the Southern Highlands.
John would be so proud of you, Olive. It'll produce students with a desire to live a plain, cheerful, and active life on earth.
Where once they worked with their eyes to the ground, now they look up. I can't remember who said that, but my dear John was right. This is the answer. Yes. Together. Yes! In April of 1924, Marguerite and I addressed the Conference of Southern Mountain Workers held in Knoxville, Tennessee. We reported our findings. It is hard to keep all the thousand fads of modern educational life out of such a simple school. Recreation schemes, artificial debates, narrow regulations of morals and manners. It is hard because the world is not accustomed to simplicity and unsophisticated fellowship. But the folk school instructor is recompensed by an inner, peaceful knowledge that he is struggling together with the people, the intuitive heart of the people, and that is not far away from eternal life.
The resemblance between the cultural and economic conditions of rural Finland and our southern mountain is striking. I am convinced of the folk school system. Therefore, I am resigning my position at the Kentucky school and committing myself henceforth to the folk school.
I'm not a practical person, Marguerite. You know me all too well. I can recite poetry and sing an endless number of forgotten ballads, but if we work together, we will find a place that wants our folk school.
I'm with you.
So where do we start?
Well, we went to Grandview, Tennessee, but the local Methodist and Baptist, they couldn't even share a space for worship. Not a promising place for the shared world of a folk school.
We went to Quicksand, Kentucky. They had called for us to choose that location, but it was so remote we could barely find it ourselves. For 7 more months, we traveled from place to place, mostly in West Virginia, where we were encouraged to visit, but the wealthy were too stuffy and the religious too narrow. It was exhausting. I decided to go back to New England to work on finishing John's book, The Danish Folk School, and Marguerite went on looking on her own.
I spent 3 weeks in Kentucky only to find no men living at home because they were all away working in the coal mines. And during those 3 weeks, there had been 7 killings. One Sunday after church, a stranger got shot in the back. And further, the land had been stripped by the lumber barons at great cost to the soil. At one area that was possible for consideration, farmers had put up fences only to have them torn down by the locals who didn't want their taxes to go up. I left Kentucky rather discouraged. West Virginia began to seem more and more viable. Then one of my associates at the Pine Mountain School wrote, "I hope you don't decide on West Virginia until you've looked at Cherokee County in western North Carolina."
I'm almost done with the book. You go ahead if you want to. I'll be ready to begin something soon, to do something soon. I'm tired of studying. I want action. Good luck.
You finish up. I'll take a look. So I was driven all over Cherokee County in a little Model T Ford, being shown land clearly capable of good farming. I stayed at the Regal Hotel in nearby Murphy. One morning, the proprietor introduced me to a couple of gentlemen.
Miss Butler, how do you do? I'm Fred Scroggs, and this is Luce Scroggs here. We're from Brasstown, ma'am.
Oh, how do you do? Nice to meet you both, I'm sure.
Oh, the pleasure is ours.
How can I help you, gentlemen?
Well, we heard that someone was in Murphy that was interested in starting a school.
Yes, that's me. Absolutely.
Well, what kind of school are we talking about?
Well, not a college, not a school with grades or credits. It's a school that we would hope would help the greater community as a whole. Anyone 18 to 30 or so?
Tell us more.
Well, you must understand, it's not a school for children, but for adults. It's based on the Danish Folk School.
Believe it or not, Miss Butler, Fred here knows all about that kind of school.
It was started by Nikolai Grundtvig during Denmark.
Well, yes.
Well, it has no requirements, no examination, no credits. Its primary purpose is to arouse the individual so that he'll never stop growing. Now, farming is central to the well-being of a community like ours. And let it be said, farming around these parts is at a low ebb. Our small farms need to be built up and made productive.
Time to change from corn and small grain farming to hay and pasture crops to dairying, livestock, and poultry farming. Collectively getting the local products out to a larger market beyond the Brasstown community.
It sounds like what you're thinking is what we want. We don't want a school that just makes teachers and preachers. We want to keep the younger generations here, where they can flourish by learning that self-sufficiency and improving their community.
That's right. Young people have been up and living for our community to take jobs in the cities, leaving a hole in their absence.
Well, that's right.
Well, Miss Butler, can we come back tomorrow for a further chat?
Well, yes, I'd like that. See you tomorrow?
Next day, a Saturday, mind you, me and Luce and a couple of others went back. Hello, Miss Butler.
Hello, Miss Butler.
Hello. Nice to see you again.
Our pleasure, Miss Butler.
Cutting right to the chase, are you busy tomorrow?
Will you come out to the Methodist Church tomorrow?
Well, I'd like to, I'm sure.
Mr. Cary, the Presbyterian minister, is going to speak, and a quartet from Georgia is going to sing.
Will you come out to the church to meet the community?
Well, honestly, Mr. Scroggs, it would be my pleasure. So, the next day, I met at the hotel and was driven out to the church. When we got to the hillside, it was simply covered with wagons. No automobiles, just wagons, filled with split-bottom chairs for the people that had come. The church was packed, and, well, Fred met me at the door.
You're going to have to talk today. The people have come, and they expect it.
I don't know what the minister said or how long he talked. I do know the quartet sang something, but I'm afraid I must have talked well over half the time that morning. They began asking questions, piling question upon question. They wanted that school.
Excuse me, Miss Butler, but it's getting late. We got chickens to feed, cows to milk. Let's meet again on the other side of the creek. End of the week over at the Baptist Church.
I'd like that.
Miss Butler,
Yes, Mr. Scroggs.
we'd be glad to put you up a few nights if that'd be more convenient.
Well, thank you so much.
And I can take you around the countryside and show you this farm and that farm and introduce you so you can tell them what you're planning. I'm sure that they'd be glad to listen.
That would be wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Scroggs.
It's our pleasure, Miss Butler.
So that week, I got an eyeful of the countryside, and a friendly showing of support in the community. By Friday night, I got to the church to find it overflowing, people standing in the aisles and people standing outside looking in the windows.
So we've come to promise everything we can do if only the kind of school you talked about will be built right here in Brasstown.
Friends, first I've got to go to West Virginia where Mrs. Campbell is meeting with interested parties. I'll have her come and meet you all before any decisions are made there. That's the best I can promise.
On the 1st of October, 1925, while Miss Butler went to fetch Mrs. Campbell, I chaired a meeting in Brasstown. The John C. Campbell Folk School is an attempt to apply the principles underlying the Folk High School in Denmark to our rural problems in the Southern Highland region. It's an experiment in adult education to vitalize and dignify the whole content of our rural civilization. John C. Campbell saw a way of life of preserving what is best in Highland culture and of opening a way to a deeper and richer life. I prepared this brief history of the theory of the Danish Folk High School. It's a school primarily for young adults, age 18 to 30. It sets no requirements, gives no examinations, offers no credits, and its primary purpose is, through the influence of personality and oral teaching, to arouse the individual so that he will never stop learning and growing. It distinguishes between acquiring and developing. It does not try to assume responsibility for local change, but to awaken the desire for a better life, which is the only sound basis for change. Do the people of this community understand fully what the proposed Danish folk school means to them?
Yes.
Will we cooperate to the fullest extent?
Absolutely.
Do we want to offer our support?
Yes.
How many families are interested?
I'd say about 132.
132.
Do we own our own homes?
Yes, 95% do.
That's right.
How much land will we donate?
50 acres. More if required.
Will Clay and Cherokee counties cooperate?
Definitely.
Yes, absolutely.
Is the proposed location accessible to counties of Clay and Cherokee and towns in Union?
That's
Perfect.
How many states are within reach?
I should think about
Five.
What's the suitable location for the county?
No, so someplace near the Clay and Cherokee line.
And we further pledge ourselves as a committee to cooperate to the full extent to make the school a success.
A motion was made and carried unanimously. A week later, on October 7th, Mrs. Campbell went before the Presbyterian Board of National Missions, applying for a grant to cover the cost of further studies towards a commitment to Brasstown for the founding of the school, and it was approved. And then in early November 1925, Mrs. Campbell joined Miss Butler, and together we toured over all the counties. The desire of the community for a school which will help the whole country is overwhelmingly supported by the summary of pledges represented by 116 citizens and made entirely on their own initiative and in commitment to cooperation.
Oh, Marguerite, this is the place.
I knew it.
I knew it. Now all we have to do is tell West Virginia no. In selecting Brasstown, North Carolina, we have found the favorable combination of circumstances, a poor population, but a rich land capable of agricultural development, a natural center for an area of some 50 square miles on a good highway, 8.5 miles from Murphy, where 2 railroads meet, and about 100 miles from the markets of Asheville, Knoxville, and Atlanta.
I pledge 20 days' work each year and 25 building logs. C.M. Hughes, Brasstown.
I pledge first year 30 days work, each additional year 10 days work, 10 building logs, 3 loads firewood each year for 5 years. William Clayton, Brasstown.
I pledge $100 in labor at customary prices to be donated throughout a period of 3 years. Option on farm at reasonable price if needed. 5 loads firewood each year for a period of 3 years. Cliff Waldrop, Brasstown.
I pledge first year, 30 days work, man and team, 10 days work with team at each additional year, any stones on my farm, 25 building logs, 3 loads firewood yearly, option on farm if needed, 5 acres land off my farm. J.E. Hall, Brasstown.
On December 7th, 1925, in the Murphy, North Carolina office of Dillard and Hill, the John C. Campbell Folk School Incorporated was approved and accepted.
We pledged 20 acres, more or less land, value $2,000, L.L. Scroggs and family, Brasstown.
I pledge $10 cash or work each year for 5 years. J.O. Penland, Brasstown.
Well, I pledged 10 days work with team first year, 5 days work with team each additional year for 2 years. John Logan, Brasstown.
The family of Fred O. Scroggs has unanimously decided to donate 25 acres along with an old farmhouse.
Mrs. Campbell and I moved in, braving the December cold in an unmaintained 40-year-old farmhouse, badly needed repairs. We managed to get through 6.5 weeks while the chimney was being rebuilt, but this was the beginning.
I pledge 10 days work yearly. H.H. Scroggs, Brasstown.
I pledge 20 days work, man and team each year for 3 years, 3 loads of firewood per year for 5 years, and any suitable stone on my farm. Professor S.H. Carringer, Little Brasstown.
I pledged 10 days work per year for 3 years. John Deal, Brasstown.
I pledge 5 days work. O.H. Cantrell, Brasstown.
I pledge $5 per year for 5 years. T.C. Scroggs, Hayesville.
I pledge $50 per year, as long as I remain in the county. Willard R. Anderson, County Agent, Hayesville.
In March of 1926, I composed our first newsletter. Brasstown's greatest asset is its citizenship, a strong group of small farmers with a high reputation for integrity. 97% are landowners.
I pledge $25. E.A. Davidson Murphy.
I pledge $15 taken out in hauling. Frank Laney, Cherokee County.
I pledge 10 days work, man and team, each year for 3 years. Will Brindle, Brasstown.
I pledge 6 days work yearly for 3 years. Faith Hain, Brasstown.
The John C. Campbell Folk School begins its life as a home and farm in the Brasstown community. A home and farm where the citizens of the region have a real share and a stake.
I pledge any building stones on my farm will haul if health will permit. G.W. Crisp, age 73, Brasstown.
Well, I pledge 500 narcissus bulbs, all varieties, 25 peonies, 3 colors, any wild shrubs, and any loose stones on my farm. Mrs. Lillian Scroggs, Brasstown.
Their life is different only in that its main purpose is not the welfare of one family, but the welfare of all.
Within 6 months, the little farmhouse was repaired and repainted, rose trellises added, the well cleaned and deepened, dilapidated outbuildings torn down, fences mended, and a garden planted. Then in May of 1926, George Bidstrup arrived from Denmark to manage the farm. George had probably met Miss Campbell and Miss Butler during their visit to Denmark when they were studying the folk schools. He was soon joined by Leon Deschamps, a forester and civil engineer from the Pine Mountain School in Kentucky. Together, they straightened out Brasstown Creek, installed a water system, improved the land, constructed campus buildings, and organized a number of cooperatives. The folk school facilitated the establishment of the Brasstown Savings and Loan, a credit union, a farmers association, and a poultry hatchery, the Mountain Valley Creamery Cooperative, the Women's Community Club, and, not the least, the Brasstown Carvers. George taught gymnastics, and Miss Butler joined him in teaching folk dancing. In 1936, they married and together remained at this folk school for the next 30 years. But I'm getting way ahead of myself. Back to where I left off, in September of 1927, Colonel Jack Dillard, the lawyer from Murphy who oversaw the incorporation of the school barely 2 years earlier, delivered a glowing Dedication Day speech at the newly remodeled, built folk school community room.
Our distinguished visitors, officers and teachers of the John C. Campbell Folk School, Mrs. Olive Dame Campbell, Miss Marguerite Butler, ladies and gentlemen. Most of us have heard how, many years ago, they came into the mountains of our Southland Dr. John C. Campbell, a young man with the spirit of a crusader, with a heart which literally overflowed with love for his kind, and fired with a lively zeal for unselfish service to his Maker and his fellow man. For more than a quarter of a century, this man lived among our mountain people, teaching, preaching, laboring always to do what he could to better their condition, along both material and spiritual lines. Now, a fine judge of human nature, Dr. Campbell soon came to know the mountaineer as few others have ever known him. While by no means blind to his weaknesses and foibles, he had at the same time a keen and sympathetic appreciation of his many good qualities and a fine understanding of his great latent possibilities. We owe a debt of everlasting gratitude to that preacher, teacher, and friend of humankind, Dr. Campbell, whose vision and labors, supplemented by the unselfish and tireless work of Mrs. Campbell and Miss Butler, have brought to us this institution with all that it means and all that it will mean to us and those who are to come after us. I heartily commend your spontaneous and unanimous decision to call the first folk school to be established in America the John C. Campbell Folk School, in honor of him whose vision made it possible. Of this splendid building in which we are met today, we are of course very proud. But if the coming of the folk school brings to us only material things, our fondest hopes for it would utterly fail. Let us all endeavor today to realize what this school may mean to us, and let us dedicate anew our efforts to prove that Mrs. Campbell and Miss Butler made no unworthy choice when they selected the Brasstown community. In conclusion, let me warn you against impatience. In other words, not to expect all these anticipated benefits to come suddenly or all at once. Our growth toward becoming that ideal community must of necessity be gradual. If we will do our part, if we will but continue to be unswervingly loyal to the vision of the folk school, and to hold up the hands of those who are trying to help us, it will come, I confidently believe. Let us then, therefore, be diligent, loyal, and true. And in time, if we faint not, we shall reap.
Thank you, Colonel Dillard. And now I'd like to leave you all with some lines from Mads Hansen, a Danish farmer and poet. I am just a simple farmer, downright and plain, and yet I love my modest callings. I sing behind the plow. Hills and woods give back my song, and when I am weary with toil and day is done, my spirit is fresh, my mind at ease. I am happy and free. I sing behind the plow.